Okay then, so first news story of the week. The day before we recorded this direct, Bethesda Game Studios quote unquote dropped the next generation, well, current generation upgrade for Fallout 4. Tom's been checking it out, and what we have here in the direct are our first impressions. But I'm actually reshooting this intro, so this is Future Rich talking here, because on Sunday, the publisher put out a tweet that directly contradicts what we're going to be talking about in this segment. So to be clear, the PlayStation 5 version of Fallout 4's next generation upgrade has all of the quality and performance modes mentioned in the patch notes, but weirdly, Xbox does not. We think that Xbox Series X is actually stuck on performance mode regardless of the option you choose in game, while the tweet from Bethesda says that quality mode works fine and targets 60 frames per second in both quality and performance modes. But to illustrate the point that we think something is a bit amiss here, right, this is a shot of the Xbox Series X version in its quality mode, performance mode disabled, and it runs at 60 frames per second. However, if we swap in the PlayStation 5 version in the exact same spot in its 4K 30 quality mode, you can clearly see a richer image, improved LODs and foliage. It's pretty blatant, right? Now cycle between them, and it's clear that when Xbox is set to its quality mode, you don't seem to be getting the quality mode settings. It seems to suggest that the Xbox Series X's quality mode is not functioning, as we'll discuss further on. And to sort of illustrate the point still further, we've got the exact same spot captured from before the next generation upgrade. So this is effectively the Xbox One X version running under back compat on Series X. Cycle between these two images here, and you can see that once again, the new version has significantly pared back detail in terms of those LODs and foliage and whatnot. So we really do think something is amiss here, regardless of the tweet that went out from Bethesda, and hopefully it will get fixed. But at this point, Future Rich, me, is going to bow out, and we're going to return to the original recording, and Tom will continue the discussion.
I got a little bit unlucky, actually, telling you two earlier, but the Xbox consoles were my kind of picked platform this time to show, like, okay, I've got all my saves lined up before the patch using, the 4K 30 FPS mode that we had with the last gen, 1X version that we're playing on Series X. And I thought, okay, well, that works, and then we'll upgrade to the Xbox version with the latest next gen patch. Didn't realize that the patch would actually be bugged, and that the mode selection toggle that is included, Bethesda call it a quality and performance mode switch, but it's just performance mode on and off in the menu. So a bit of labeling issue there, but it just doesn't work on Xbox. In my experience, I've tried everything. I've tried literally, I've tried signing in as a new user, reinstalling the whole game. Just nothing worked. And then I got home after doing all the FPS testing with the Xbox machines and gave it a run on my PS5, and that works. So I guess from the top, shall I go through some of the patch notes stuff? Because this is quite interesting.
Okay, yeah, but just before you begin, basically what you're saying on Xbox is that the quality performance toggle doesn't work and it's just performance all the time.
Performance all the time. Yeah.
Okay.
So what happens is you have 60 FPS 4K mode, and you swap it off, you turn it off, and you'd assume you'd get 30 FPS, but it just stays at 60, stays running at 4K, and yeah, that's kind of where it is.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of befuddling.
Yes. But how's it looking anyway?
Oh, well, I guess a bit of a sort of primer on where we came from. We just came from running the last gen version at 4K 30 or 1080p 60 if you have FPS boost enabled. Being a last gen game, you've got the compatibility options in the menus on the Xbox to make it run at 60, kind of force it into the I think it's like the last gen Xbox One code path because it runs at 1080p max. Mm-hmm. But the problem is if you do FPS boost, you run at 1080p max, which is a bit of a downer, but also the volumetric effects also run at Xbox One settings, so they look terrible.
Right.
They look awful. I will say as a caveat, there's the whole world of mods on Fallout, which solve a huge range of issues. And we've looked into this, Rich, with a combined effort on Bethesda's FPS, Bethesda's hacks and mods. And there was a way to get it to run at 4K 60 with big performance drops. It didn't quite pan out perfectly, but it was playable enough mostly. So bring us today, and we have the official solution, which is Bethesda giving us 4K and 60 FPS at the same time with volumetrics improved massively. The game looks and runs better than it has ever done officially without a mod. And I think, I'm we were all really hoping to play this game at 60 anyway, so losing the 30 FPS mode wasn't such a big tragedy for me. But in the mix, when we look at the patch notes, it turns out there's a bit more than just a 60-30 split. There's actually a 40 FPS mode if you have a 120 hertz display connected, which is just like great. I love that. And that 40 hertz mode gives you ultra preset settings for LEDs on foliage and a range of other settings as well. So if you're willing to run at 40 FPS, you get 4K and you get ultra settings. So there's a lot going on there.
Okay. And obviously you're looking at the Series X version at the moment, which is bugged, so you can't access those quality modes.
Yes.
But what is the outlook on Series X at the moment?
You know what? It runs great, except for one area. Remember the Corvega factory?
That's the classic stress test, really. It's basically a huge view over the whole wasteland, really.
Yeah, sure is. It's kind of like an interior area which tanked the old consoles, and we love to use that to show, whether it's an improved performance or not. But you get to the rooftop, and even these next-gen consoles are still kind of having a bit of a rough time of it. So they actually don't run at a perfect 60. I think we're going to do a full video on this, aren't we? So we'll see the Corvega factory rooftop come up quite a bit in the when it comes to showing off. Does actually deliver. So Series X does drop to like 55 FPS or so on top of the Corvega factory in the 4K 60 performance mode.
Okay.
And
well, that's quite heartening, isn't it? Because that was an area that just collapsed if you used the mod on the Xbox One X version running on Series X.
That's true.
So there's obviously clear improvements here.
Big improvement, yeah.
I'm going to be interested to see how this 1440p mode plays out.
Yeah, I was just thinking about that.
Whether it seems a bit odd to have to set your console to 1440p to access a particular mode. Why not just have like an ultra mode or whatever that has a slight hit to resolution? There's all manner of weirdness that I'm kind of seeing here, but it is quite odd. Did you take a look at Series S as well?
I did. All the consoles. So Series S runs at 10. No, it doesn't. It runs at 1440p. That's a big upgrade, and a huge win. Obviously, output at 4K on Series S. You get 1440p native. It drops to 1080p lowest on the Corvega factory rooftop. You test that basically by getting the drop to 55 FPS, looking down over the whole area, and you can see the lower bounds. So 1080p to 1440p upgrade, which is an upgrade over the flat 1080p we had before. Volumetrics are improved. It's all great and dandy. Yeah, really, really impressed with Series S. Runs very well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's quite interesting because you did have FPS boost on Series S, but you couldn't use the mod to access 60 FPS without a huge sort of bizarre windowing effect happening there.
Yes.
Which wasn't great. Okay, so, well, obviously, I guess the proof of the pudding would likely be in a patched Xbox version, because I just don't understand how a massive high-profile release like this can ship with the performance, the quality modes rather not working.
Exactly. I'm a little bit wary of a few reports of the PS5 version saying their playthrough also doesn't change with the mode selection. So I'm wondering if there are some Xbox players who do have it working somehow.
Right.
But I'll leave that to the comments, I guess. But
okay,
bit of a palaver.
The fact that it doesn't work on a console's supposed to be one size fits all solution.
platform.
It's supposed to work everywhere. The fact that it doesn't apparently work on all machines points to a pretty serious issue, I would say.
Exactly.
So, I mean, I'm actually pretty interested in this. I'm also interested in that 1440p mode, like Rich said, because its existence implies both that like you can't target these higher settings at a higher res that is dynamic in the current performance mode. So I'm curious about the lower bound resolution of the current performance mode on Series X and PS5. I'm a little bit curious about what those ultra settings do, like just visually. I think it's probably going to see it. You're seeing it mostly in the LODs, based on this type of game in the shadows.
Yes, for sure.
And I'm curious about those things. And also, I guess since you did mention it, like, is there a performance difference between PS5 and Xbox Series X in this core Vega area that you described earlier, which is like the typical benchmark?
That's a good question. Yeah, I think that there is, but I'm going by eye. I had the FPS tools at the office where I did the Xbox testing, and they dropped to like low 50s, 55 FPS on the core Vega test. Then over the PS5, I'm just scanning by eye, are there any dips? There's none so far, but you know what, I will get 100% confirmation on that. So it is looking like potentially PS5 does have a win here in performance, which going by sort of recent trends wouldn't. Well, there's been a few inexplicable cases where PS5 suddenly has a better performance than the Series X, and I'm just like, okay, I'm accepting it at this point.
Yeah, I mean, for this game, I wouldn't be too surprised by it. By just one aspect is this game had some really funky volumetric effects back in the day.
It did, yeah.
Like
funky volumetrics.
The reason they don't use the normal the typical way games do it, it was like a NVIDIA sponsored effect that happened to also run on the console versions, and it uses tessellation actually to do the volumetrics, which is a pretty weird way to do it. Yeah. And that like higher clock front end on the PS5 might actually be a winning factor here, because it used to be pretty heavy on AMD GPUs back in the day. In fact, they sucked at it. So if you had a higher clocked front end, and it was a big part of the frame time, it could actually help quite a bit.
Let's talk about the PC version,
yes.
which we haven't looked at firsthand yet. But Alex, a couple of weeks ago, you did like a laundry list of everything that you hope will be fixed. You could also consider them to be quote unquote pratfalls if they did make their way into the next gen version. And lo and behold, it's like it's well, what can I say? It's just like almost every single point you raised has not been addressed.
Yeah, I enjoyed this PC Gamer article, by the way. Thank you for whoever wrote that. I'm sorry. Forget off the top of my head, but wonderful that I remember going through in the DF Direct like these pointed list of all these things that I think they need to fix, and none of them are none of the big ones I wanted them to fix are there. So the game, I think this is bad, just because these are things that should be fixed. Specifically, the game crashing when you use the the PhysX debris option that is in there. This is a pretty classic problem for the game, and it just was left that way after RTX GPUs came out, which wasn't, it's a couple of years after the release, but things like Fallout 76, you think they might want to go back and fix it up. Either way, that is still an issue in this current version of the game. Very curious about how they did the testing for this patch on PC, considering they're definitely going to be testing this on RTX GPUs. I'm pretty sure they're going to want to test all those settings. I'm hoping they would have noticed that the game is crashing when you turn on a setting. So yeah, that's really sucks. Another thing that I'm looking at with this PC Gamer article is that they mentioned that the widescreen support that is there, the ultra widescreen support, doesn't have properly configured HUD for it. It's just stretching the HUD. And now that's usually a no-no for these kind of modes at all, because, well, you kind of get this really ugly looking appearance of the HUD. and takes away from wanting to use the mode altogether, especially in a semi UI heavy game like this one is.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, like the whole base building aspect is all UI driven, right?
Yes.
So, yeah, I don't know. And they didn't.
Well, actually, I'm just looking at that PC Gamer article there, Alex. It's by Ted Litchfield.
Thank you, Ted.
Yeah, thanks, Ted. It's a good article. Basically, the issues he himself noticed, or others are complaining about, issues loading modded saves and using non-creation club mods at all, including the essential Fallout 4 script extender. The next-gen patch does not introduce any graphical improvements.
Yeah, not so.
The new ultra-wide support has a poorly stretched UI that will require a user-made patch. Basically, the same solution ultra-wide gamers were using before the update. Fallout 4's iteration of the creation engine still doesn't support frame rates over 60 FPS. That's one of those pratfalls that I was talking about, that you were talking about weeks ago, Alex, which is, hold on a minute, this game just doesn't run over 60 FPS. Surely, if you're going to future-proof it for, modern play, it should be supporting arbitrary frame rates above that. It doesn't.
Yeah.
And yes, the weapon debris graphic setting, which you pointed out, yes, it crashes on all RTX cards.
Yeah.
An issue that has been present since RTX cards were introduced. So that's like 6 years now.
It's a really old issue. Yeah, and you'd think, to make it, because the thing is, most people who play this game are going to be playing it on an RTX GPU. Like the vast majority are going to be. So, especially those returning now, all these years later, you're not going to be returning with your vintage 2015 PC. You're going to be playing it on a modern one. I would like to see at least 3 of these things fixed. I don't think they're ever going to fix the 60 FPS thing because it probably requires work on a level that they don't feel is worth it. But I think having the debris option, the weapon debris, the physics debris option work without crashing, I think that's completely fixable. And I also would like to see, just use the mod. Then, at that point in time, there's already a mod out there that gets better HUD for the game and ultra wide than what the official implementation has. Then just bring that in, just bring that in.
Yeah. Very much agreed.
There's also reports that the game has received Steam Deck verification, but that implementation on Steam Deck just seems to be to not show the launcher where you set your graphics options.
Yeah.
Yes, I had heard that. That is pretty poor.
Yeah, you can get around it by adding a launch parameter that basically says you aren't running this on a Steam Deck, and you get the launcher back, and then you can tweak settings again. So I can only assume that maybe there's some sort of curated series of settings that Bethesda has introduced that allows for Steam Deck verification. But even so, that's just not great. I'm still unclear about what Deck Verified actually means in the broader scheme of things. So, yes, I mean, I don't know what to say about this because to launch a major project like this with bugs is just like almost incomprehensible when you consider the scale of the game, the reputation of the studio. Well, I guess that could go both ways, right? And, just the concept that this is so eagerly awaited. And the fact that I think this game deserves to have a properly implemented next generation implementation that will future-proof it across the ages. I think, that's actually really valuable work. But the concept that you're not really getting any of this stuff rankles, to say the least. It does look as though a lot more effort has gone into the console versions, at least, with the implementation of those various modes, which does actually exercise more of the GPU and CPU. But the concept that we can't get a performance/quality toggle working on an Xbox from an Xbox studio, what's going on there? That just doesn't make sense, right? It's baffling, but it does work on PlayStation. It does seem that there's some effort has gone into those console versions at least, but the concept that you can't actually reap the benefits of the work on, the first party platform.
So weird.
It's just kind of mind-blowing.
Yeah.
It's very, very weird. Yes, but this is just basically initial work. We are going to have a full video on it. Maybe they'll fix this Xbox issue during the period. You'd hope so, right? Surely it must have been working at some point.
Yeah. I mean, maybe we'll hang back till it arrives. It can't be that far off.